Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dragons and Spaceships. I'm your host, Brandi, and today's episode is a little different in tone, quieter, heavier, but also unexpectedly funny and deeply human. Today, we are talking about The Wedding People by Alison Espach, a novel that looks at grief, loneliness, and the strange ways connection can find us when we least expect it. This is a book about weddings, yes, but it's really about the people standing just outside of the spotlight. The ones who don't quite fit, the ones who are breaking quietly, and the ones who are trying to figure out how to keep going. Before we get too far, let's look at this week's trending book tease. We are spotlighting The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon, a Good Morning America book club pick that has been everywhere. Set in 1789 Maine, this historical mystery follows Martha Ballard, a midwife whose detailed diary makes her the keeper of every secret in town. When a man is found frozen in the river, Martha is drawn into a murder investigation and a much darker truth about power, justice, and whose voices are believed. If you love historical fiction with mystery, atmosphere, and strong female lead, this one belongs on your TBR. Also, tune in next week if you want to get a little better idea of what this book is about. All right, let's set the stage for our book. The Wedding People is set in Newport, Rhode Island, inside a luxury inn that has been booked entirely for a lavish week-long wedding. Into this world walks Phoebe Stone. She arrives alone. She has no luggage, and she has come to Newport believing this will be the final stop in her life. Phoebe is not part of the wedding party. She's not supposed to be there. But through a series of misunderstandings and a shocking moment of honesty, she becomes entangled in the lives of the wedding guests, especially the bride, Lila. What unfolds is not a dramatic rescue story. It's something quieter and far more uncomfortable. This book asks, what happens when your breaking point collides with someone else's big, perfect moment? And what happens when staying alive becomes a series of very small decisions, 1 hour at a time? At the center of this story is Phoebe. She's smart, observant, deeply self-aware, and completely exhausted. Her life has been shaped by infertility, divorce, professional disappointment, pandemic isolation, and a grief that never quite found a place to land. Phoebe is not dramatic in her pain. She is matter-of-fact about it. And that honestly is disarming to the people around her, to us as readers. Then there's Lila, the bride. Lila is privileged, controlling, deeply anxious, and obsessed with appearances. At first, she feels almost impossible to like. But as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Lila is also trapped, performing the role that she believes she's supposed to play, terrified of disappointing the people who expect everything from her. What makes this book work so well is that it refuses to turn either woman into a villain or a saint. They are both flawed, they are both hurting, and they are both desperate to be seen, even when they don't have the language for it. At its core, The Wedding People is about expectation. The expectations we place on marriage, on motherhood, on happiness, on what a successful life is supposed to look like. Espach explores how grief doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like irritability or detachment or perfectionism or going through the motions because stopping feels impossible. The wedding itself becomes a powerful symbol, a massive, expensive performance meant to prove that everything is okay. Meanwhile, Phoebe's quiet presence exposes how fragile that performance really is. This book also asks an important question. What if the rituals we cling to, weddings, careers, life's milestones, are sometimes less about joy and more about fear? Alison Espach's writing is precise and unsentimental in the best way. She writes grief without melodrama, depression without romanticizing it, and humor without undercutting the pain. This book is filled with small, sharply observed moments, overheard conversations, awkward silences, internal commentary that feels uncomfortably familiar. There's also a subtle but powerful use of setting. The opulence of Newport, the mansions, the ocean views, the luxury, constantly contrasts with Phoebe's internal emptiness. It's a reminder that beauty doesn't fix what's broken, but sometimes being witnessed does. This book left me thinking about how often we expect people to show up polished, especially during big life moments. Weddings, births, celebrations. We rarely make room for the people who are struggling quietly in the background. The Wedding People doesn't offer easy answers, but it does offer something gentler, the idea that connection doesn't have to be perfect to be life-saving. That sometimes staying alive isn't about hope for the future. Sometimes it's about finding one person, one moment, or one unexpected kindness that keeps you here just a little bit longer. If you read The Wedding People, I'd love to know. Did you see yourself in Phoebe or in Lila? And do you think we give ourselves enough permission to fall apart when life doesn't follow the plan? But now it is time for the Dragon's Roar, where we spotlight a story roaring back onto the big screen. Coming to theaters on February 13th this year, we are getting a bold new adaptation of Wuthering Heights based on Emily Bronte's iconic Gothic novel. This reimagining is directed by Emerald Fennell following Promising Young Woman and Saltburn, which tells you immediately this won't be a soft traditional period drama. Starring Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff and Margot Robbie as Catherine Earnshaw, the film centers on one of literature's most passionate and destructive relationships. This is not a love story about compatibility. It's about obsession, class, longing, and the way love can turn feral when denied room to breathe. The cast also includes Alison Oliver and Owen Cooper, with original music by Charlie XCX, signaling a modern, emotionally sharp take on classic. Wuthering Heights is about what happens when love consumes everything in its path, and I cannot wait to see this movie. The Wedding People is not an easy book, but it is a deeply compassionate one. It reminds us that people who seem out of place are often ones carrying the most. And that sometimes survival begins not with a grand turning point, but with staying for breakfast, then lunch, then one more day. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on Dragons and Spaceships. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it, especially with someone who might need a little reminder that they are not alone. Until next time, keep reading, keep dreaming, and as always, may your TBR pile never stop growing.